get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Hey, good morning, folks. It is Wednesday, August 19th. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit, right there in the bottom of your screen. Don't forget to follow also PPD, at PPD News. All right. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the page on Facebook. We're rocking, folks. It's awesome. Look, things are up. Woo woo. Things are up, and we thank you for it. Day 2 of the DNC convention, right? If you want to call it that, whatever we're calling it. Today, we're calling it the Parade of Horribles, the political parade of horribles. This is like more than just a normal, boring convention. This is painful to watch because of the way, obviously, with coronavirus, we're doing it. But it kind of reminds me of like 20th century communist propaganda, all these canned things every day. Yeah, and basically, you know, I just had a Laura, we got a bunch of that. We always watch all these screens in the background. It's like part of the job. You have to watch all of these news channels. You would probably go nuts if you were me and you hate the big media hate machine. But, you know, you got to flip to Fox. You got to flip to CNN. You got to flip to MSNBC. You got to see what everybody's doing, right? So it's just part of the job, and we left it on. So, all right, look, what do I mean by the Parade of Horribles? It's day 2. And I still have no discernible message out of this damn convention. This is not like a rational. What they're saying is just hate Donald Trump so much, be afraid so much that you have to vote for us. Joe Biden's a great guy for all the reasons we're all going to mention, and you should pick him because Donald Trump is not a great guy. All right. There's no rational policy choice in this election, or at least not from the Democrats' point of view. There's no rational policy choice. What do I mean by that? A rational policy choice is a word, a term psephologists use to, discuss whether this was a choice election. What was this? And for the most part, I subscribe to the idea that American voters make rational policy choices. Whether you disagree with them or not, they believe that candidate A or candidate B has the better platform for them. It will make their lives better, so they vote for candidate A or candidate B. I largely, anyway, subscribe to rational policy choices. All right. The idea of them. There are none in this election. There are none. At least Hillary Clinton made that case, or at least she tried to make the case for rational policy choice, making a rational policy choice for her, to vote for her. She may have not been good at it. She may have not campaigned enough to get it out there. She may have gotten outworked by Donald Trump. That's all irrelevant. Joe Biden isn't making one. Joe Biden isn't making one. I've never seen anything like this in my life. It's hate Donald Trump, be afraid, be very afraid. Hate this man with all your guts, all your might, and vote for Joe Biden because he's not Donald Trump. After 2 days of this, that's all there is. And yesterday was the deep state's turn. All right. Yesterday was the backers of the Iraq War's turn. Yesterday was the turn for the neoconservative movement that was booted out of Donald Trump's Republican Party and engulfed, sucked up. Because, look, folks, I'm shocked at how many people don't know the history of neoconservatism. Let me briefly go through it. All right. Oh, and real quick, show announcement. We do have to do, and I promise you, this is for a good reason. I may have some like really major news, like almost as major gets. And I have to work on it today in order to do it. So you guys, I know you're going to be mad. We will take questions and I will try to get through as much as possible. But I may have some, you will find it worth it. Just trust me. You will find it worth it. Okay. If it happens. And I think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know if you remember me yesterday saying I got some emails that, were pretty like interesting. I have to follow up with this today. All right. So anyway, so don't be mad at me because in the end, if it pans out, which I really do think it's gonna, if it pans out, then you're going to be like, oh, well, Rich, take all the time you need to do that. All right. Anyway, back to the DNC here. So day 2 was the political parade of horribles. It was the deep state's turn, the neocons' turn, and many people don't understand what neoconservatism is. So let me explain it for you. All right. Neoconservatism, for those who do not know, is the idea, this is what they believe, that the primacy of U.S. power is not only supreme, but we can use it to shape the world in our image, okay? To use military might, U.S. military might, to shape the world in our image, to force it to accept our values, all right? And if we make the world more like us, then there'll be less war, all right? And this all stems from international relations theory, which I got bored and decided to study in college, all right? Because I did that in one part of my life, right? And just like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. I just jumped everywhere because I had it and I wanted to when I got out of the Army. Anyway, so neocons like Bill Kristol and, Max Boot, Bill Kristol's daddy, right? They were never conservatives. They were never conservatives. They were always domestic liberals, even to the point of being called communists at one point. They were left wing, domestic left wingers, but who believed, because a lot of them came from the left wing Jewish ideology, that they believed that the U.S. military might should be used to stop evil in the world, and that the Democratic Party at one point was becoming too weak, and it was essentially just sitting back and allowing evil to flourish kind of thing, right? Jimmy Carter's platform of human rights first, his foreign policy doctrine, was an utter failure, and they had nowhere really to go anymore. So they jumped with, Fitzpatrick and the Reagan administration. They hated Ronald Reagan. Bill O'Reilly destroyed George Will in an interview. If you guys haven't seen it, you should look at it. He called Will a hack, a fraud. He is. All of these guys now pretend to run around with the banner of Ronald Reagan. They hated the Gipper, who was not a neocon, by the way. The Gipper was the closest, until Donald Trump, that we have come to a foreign policy realist as a president. In academia, the school of realism, not liberal internationalism, but realism and different forms of it, dominates academia in international relations. And if you watch the show, you've probably heard me tell this story, but there's a joke in academia, in foreign policy academia. If you can't defend your thesis, that's okay. Go work for the State Department. You'll get a great career there. And what that means is, is that despite empirical evidence and despite the strongest of theses coming from realists like Ken Waltz and John Mearsheimer and Jack Snyder and all of these guys who espouse realism and argue the school of thought, there are these idiots like Bruce Russert and the Bill Kristols of the world who subscribe to this crap, right? Bruce Russert was the democratic peace theory. He made and that holds that if we're all democracies, we'll war less. All right. And he failed defending his thesis because he had to Taylor, what is a war? What constitutes a war? Does it include this kind of vehicle? Are there this many people? That's a police action. That wasn't a war. That was a police. I mean, it was a total joke. I mean, he's a laughing stock in academia, yet somehow in DC, these people are so stupid that every failed theory in international relations and security studies becomes like conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. So they are widely mocked. When you will study neoconservatives, they'll be a joke. It'll be the thing not to do. Anyway, when Donald Trump came along, he tried to return the Republican Party to their roots, pre-Bush roots, which was of realism, although most even Republican presidents, maybe Eisenhower is a good example of potentially someone who tried to be as much of a realist as possible. But Eisenhower, there was this big gap in between until the Gipper, who tried to. Donald Trump really is the first foreign policy realist. And they can't stand that, because what does that mean for them? That they'll get their military aid, they'll get their strong military, because the way realism is, it's there's an international state of anarchy. There's no global 911 to call. So states pursue power for self-preservation, basically. And there are different schools of realism that get into different things, but it's very much built on human nature and how human beings interact with each other at a statecraft level. And that is what explains the way the world works. That's why the UN never worked. It's a pipe dream. People and states will pursue their own interests over the collective good. Okay. Anyway, the George W. Bush comes along, and these neocons really get a footing in his administration. All right. And they finally, and you've, I'm sure, heard of the Council on Foreign Relations and the rest of them, they finally get what they want. And they believed Iraq for the longest time was one of the big, what's the word I'm looking for here, Laura? Obstacles kind of thing. But right. One of the big obstacles to be able to reshape the world in our image. Now, a realist would say, you're an idiot. Iran and Iraq are both enemies. Let them kill each other, because states, ultimately, the balance of power is determined in relative terms. So let Iran and Iraq kill each other because they weaken each other. Sound familiar, by the way? Sounds like Donald Trump, right? That's because he's espousing realism verbatim. Structural realism, to be more specific, which I subscribe to more myself, just personally. I'm a John Mearsheimer over a Ken Waltz kind of guy. I think Mearsheimer's right about certain things, where Waltz is brilliant, but he's not exactly right. And I can give you guys some stuff to read if you want to read it. But this is what the Colin Powells and the John Kerrys and the Bill Kristols and the Max Boots, and they hate this crap. They hate it because their friends don't make money off of it. There's part of them that does truly believe it. Of course, there's no evidence to support these ridiculous notions. Democracies war just as much as dictatorial states. All right. And there is no evidence to suggest reshaping the world into democracy would make it any better. And you can just simply look to the various European countries that we had to stop from killing each other over the 20th century. I mean, the thing is preposterous. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we tried out all these pre-Iraq war losers yesterday during the DNC. And what it is basically is the biggest tantrum. This is what I took yesterday to be, Laura. Yeah. This was the biggest tantrum ever taken by a class of political elites in the history of the modern world, certainly anything in my recent memory. They hate Donald Trump, really, because he exposes their failures a lot of ways. Whether you like him or not, it's really quite irrelevant. Colin Powell lied to you. He lied to me. I was a soldier at the time. He lied to everybody. The guy is a liar. He backed Barack Obama over John McCain. All right. He backed Barack Obama over Mitt Romney. So it's not like this is a recent development that Colin Powell, whatever, is turning against the Republican Party. But of course, this is the narrative they're doing. Let's take a listen to his speech, and then he can't just trot out there without somebody reminding everybody about his record. The nerve of this man to talk about morality and dignity and trust, and the nerve of this man. He lied, and he knew he was lying, and worse. Okay, so really, because he let himself be a lapdog of the Bush family, he's mad at the Republican Party. That's the truth, and has been for a while. He was not going to come back, whether it was Donald Trump or not. I mean, look, it was Mitt Romney. He still was not coming back. But he does represent this very liberal internationalist view of the world, which is a joke, a laughingstock in academia, a laughingstock. And yet it's praised widely in foreign policy establishments in D.C. Let's listen to this fool.
Our country needs a commander-in-chief who takes care of our troops in the same way he would his own family. For Joe Biden, that doesn't need teaching. It comes from the experience he shares with millions of military families, sending his beloved son off to war and praying to God he would come home safe. Joe Biden will be a president we will all be proud to salute. With Joe Biden in the White House, you will never doubt that he will stand with our friends and stand up to our adversaries, never the other way around. He will trust our diplomats and our intelligence community, not the flattery of dictators and despots. He will make it his job to know when anyone dares to threaten us. He will stand up to our adversaries with strength and experience. They will know he means business. I support Joe Biden because beginning on day one, he will restore Americans' leadership and our moral authority. He'll be a president who knows that America is strongest when, as he has said, we lead both by the power of our example and the example of our power.
So, okay, there's a lot to tackle there, right? He'll trust our diplomats and our intelligence community. You mean like the American people trusted them after 9/11 and then they lied, including you, to the country? He'll stand with our friends. What he really means by that is that his friends and the elite, the political elite in this country, their friends in Europe and elsewhere will no longer have to pay for their own security. It is textbook realism to say, NATO, you are doing what is typical bandwagoning. That is a tactic by another state to raise their relative power. If they can avoid paying for their own security, they will. And they bandwagon on another great power. That is all NATO ever did for us. They bled us dry. They did nothing for our collective security. It's outdated. Russia is not a primary threat. They are a regional hegemon and a weak one at that. They are not a rising one. They are a descending one. A hegemon is a great power or a superpower that is in charge of its regional sphere. Okay. Russia, the days of being worried about Russia crossing over into Germany, into West Germany, are over. They don't have the power to project. They don't have the capability to project power across the stopping power of water, for instance. They have like one carrier. I mean, it's a total joke. China, on the other hand, textbook regional superpower on the rise that does have the power to project into our sphere of influence. That is a hegemon. That is a danger to our hegemony. This is the old way of thinking, okay? It was obvious, and it was always true when Donald Trump said, you have to pay for your own security. Everything else, in the media you heard was nonsense and blowback and tantrums. They were always going to have to do what he said to do. Always. Unless they have another state to whom they can run to ask for their collective security. And they didn't. They don't. Merkel is already riding the fence with Russia. She already bandwagons off of Russia as well. So it's not like she was a great, sophisticated ally. And speaking of standing with our allies, Colin Powell lied to the UN Security Council in order to make his case for war against Iraq for the Bush administration. When that didn't fully work, the U.S., led by a program in the NSA, and our ally, Great Britain, because Tony Blair was in a lot of trouble, decided to illegally spy on our friends that he's talking about in order to blackmail them, to get dirt on them, so they could later blackmail them for their UN Security Council vote. All right. This is to be lectured about this by this man is something else. Here is Colin Powell. And I had to get a couple examples here. All right. That was on February 5th, by the way. I'm talking about his famous speech, infamous speech in front of the UN Security Council. All right. He said, "My colleagues, every statement I make today is backed up by sources, solid sources. These are not assertions. What we're giving you are facts and conclusions based on solid evidence." That's what he said in publicly. "There is no doubt in my mind," he said, of the Iraqi nuclear weapons program." And that's really funny because Larry Wilkerson, his chief of staff, at the very same time, Wilkerson said Powell told him that he walked into the office, in a like a little bit of a puff, like, because he was forced to lie. He knew he was lying. He wasn't really forced. He was pressured, and he buckled to the pressure of the Bushes. All right. Or the W. Bush, because Daddy Bush did not think it was wise to go into Iraq. And neither did his former Secretary of State, which is why they leaked what they leaked to the New York Times in an last-ditch effort to stop the invasion of Iraq. All right. And Wilkerson said that Colin Powell walked into his office, in one of his like little fits and said, "I wonder how we'll all feel if we put 500,000 troops in Iraq and march from one end of the country to the other and find nothing." That's a far cry from "these are not assertions. We're giving you facts and conclusions based on solid evidence." That's what Colin Powell and then in his DNC speech, he says Joe Biden is a president who will listen to our intelligence community. He's a president who will listen to our diplomats. You have to be kidding me, folks. Is this a joke? This is a political parade of horribles. This is a costume dress up. This is that kind of deception. All right. Later, he would fabricate evidence. Flat fabricate it. The State Department had a memo about the inspections. All right. And Bob Woodward said they're inspecting. This is the transcript. Powell, they're inspecting the ammunition you have. Yes. Yes. All right. You know what I'm saying? The Iraqi response. Okay. For the possibility there are forbidden ammo. For the possibility there is by chance forbidden ammo. Yes. And we sent you a message yesterday to clean out all of the areas in bold, the scrap areas, the abandoned areas, make sure nothing is there. That is not what the actual memo stated. He fudged this and to make it look like it was a possibility the Iraqis were not complying, when in fact the real one simply states that they are rechecking the scrap areas to make sure that there was nothing there. So it's more than just, he lied. And then there's tons of stuff. I mean, tons and tons. The evidence at this point is so clear that it was intentional. He lied intentionally. And now he's joining the parade of horribles to line up behind Joe Biden, who, by the way, I got to agree with Molly Hemingway, Laura, on this. At least the Jill and Joe stories, it's very human. It's cute, right? And then they try to portray this and they try to, do the human interest story. And then this happens.
Great. God, I love it. How are you? Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband. As you heard tonight, you can see why she's the love of my life, the rock of our family. She never gives herself much credit. But the truth is, she's the strongest person I know. She's a backbone like a ramrod. She loves fiercely, cares deeply.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rich's husband. Laura, you're just scratching over there to get... Everybody catch that? Did everybody catch what he said? And first of all, go ahead.
It's one. This is disgusting of Joe.
Your mic's not really on. It's not really. I mean, yeah, I know how you feel with this. Go ahead. She said it's disgusting of Joe Biden. Let her play with her thing. Her mic's not on. Anybody else catch that they're in a school? Did anybody else catch that the background is a school? That's funny considering they don't want to
But we
put
can't
kids
vote.
back in school, right? So
But we can't vote.
You
in
can't-
schools
you-
because, you know.
and the kids can't go to school.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I mean,
Yeah. But what
This-
I wanted to say was that Jill is discussing her letting her husband make a fool of himself. Number two, if you can't read a teleprompter, how are you going to run a country? Please do tell.
the most damning ad yet, and I probably should have gotten it. One of the most damning ads yet, I think, the Trump campaign has come out with. Of course, I don't know why they're not really running them on television. They're going much more digital, much more cost efficient. But you have to answer the campaign somewhat on television because there's a certain audience you're simply going to miss if you go all digital. But there's an ad that's one of the most damning ones yet from the Trump campaign, and it really shows Biden's cognitive decline over the years. All it is a comparison of him circa 4 years ago and now. And you reminded me of it because of the teleprompter, and they zoom in on when his hand is going like this because he's lost for like 30 seconds on what he's supposed to say during this statement. And he's like going like this, like, I can't see the cards. I can't see it. Like, but this is something different, Laura. It's your wife. And you're just running, hey, everybody, I'm Jill Biden's, I'm Jill's husband, Joe. But he can't even get that right. I mean, folks, how could you let them dupe you into thinking this man is all there? I don't know that, obviously, even from the polls, you can see that a majority of Americans are not duped by it. I just find this absolutely crazy. I will just say again, just to top this off, because it's already 10:27. The first segment's over, and I really want to get to the Florida election results, and I want to get to because I know that there would have been questions on that anyway, and I want to get to economic data. So let's just look. I mean, the DNC is what it is, folks. I mean, there's not much. They got Bill Clinton. It was just a photo in the Daily Mail with him and his accuser. He's getting a neck rub from his accuser in the Epstein scandal. They have no shame. They have no, I don't know what to say. Like, it's not, honestly, it's not that they don't have art. What I'm really like totally blown away and confused with. It's not like they don't have arguments to make against Donald Trump. Like, there are legit policy arguments that you could make. This is not what they've chosen to do. And I hate to say this, but I got to agree with AOC real quick before we show a clip of something.
God.
I got to agree with her. It is a procedure in the convention for, that what you do with nominating Bernie Sanders, but it is a slight. She gets 60 seconds. That if I was them, I would have taken the 60 seconds away from the radicals who were, from Black Lives Matter. I mean, Americans really got to see what they were about yesterday. In case you guys didn't see that, I mean, they full on, we're pushing for the destruction of capitalism. We're pushing for defunding the police. I mean, they gave them a platform to actually say this, but the media will help them. So they know they can get away with it. Could you imagine if it was a Republican that was in the Epstein files being accused of, serial sexual assault? I mean, the purchasing of young females for sex. Could you imagine? And then there's a photo of like Donald Trump getting his neck rubbed by his accused. Could you imagine this? That's the ultimate imagine if game. All right. But ultimately, Americans aren't really watching this thing, man. They're not watching this thing. And I got to throw this to Joe Concha real quick because this is on the ratings. They're abysmal. They are horrible. I mean, horrible. And I mean, maybe Joe will get a better turnout on Friday or whatever. Or, maybe Kamala. Well, right. Maybe Kamala will get a better turnout today. I don't know. The numbers are bad, and what's worse is if you look at where people are viewing. All right, the biggest media markets being viewing the DNC are blue areas. San Francisco, I mean, they are your very typical political elite liberals, limousine liberals. America, battleground America, is not watching this thing, Laura. They're not watching it. They're probably previewing it on social media, but if it wasn't for the pushing by cable news outlets, nobody would be watching because the online interactions live are horrible. Donald Trump gets way more for a campaign rally. I mean, or like a big event, like is state of the, well, let's watch. Let Joe Concha explain.
This convention is supposed to appeal to, say, the woke mob or your average CNN viewer. Great, it's going swimmingly. But the way you win elections is in 6 states: Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. And you have to appeal to independent voters, to undecided voters. And right now, we don't hear a message from the Democratic Party on how they will make the American people's lives better. And if you look at viewership, guys, it's down 50% on the broadcast networks. That's 30% overall when you work in cable. And it's actually even less than half than the president got when he gave his State of the Union address back in January, pre-pandemic. No one's tuning in because it's boring and it's predictable, guys.
Yeah, that's it. In a nutshell, I wish you would have given a little bit more of the details, but there's only one, which is Palm Beach or Tampa. I saw one in Florida, but again, a blue area. So it's not like they're gaining anybody here. Like there's nobody there watching that they're gaining. I just don't see this strategy. I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know what they're doing. I just don't get it. I'm clueless. I really am clueless, folks. I can't answer the questions here. I really can't. It's 10:32. When we come back, we will go over some of the election results in Florida, okay? And there's, of course, 2 primaries that I really want to drill onto. I actually want to show you the voter file for one of them. I ran a voter file analysis this morning. We did a big data poll to make the point that one of them is now going to be competitive because in the nominee that we really didn't see as competitive. And yeah, I can show you that, the consumer versus the voter panel as well. We'll do that today, all right? Because of YouGov poll, for instance, I mean, it's essentially a consumer panel, folks. That's it, all right? And they're not even deduped, against voter files. So they're, they post-stratified to make it look like an electorate. I mean, that's nerd speak, and I know because I'm a nerd. That's nerd speak for we don't have a voter sample, but we're really trying really, 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 really hard to make one look like it. I mean, that's not how this works. That's not how it's done. And that's why they keep missing the way they keep missing. I don't care about the Slimers ratings. They're horrible. You're not stupid. You're not as stupid as they think you are. All right. And we know that over here at Inside the Numbers. All right. So let's take a quick 30 seconds so I can grab a sip of water. And when we come back, we'll take a look at that. All right. That's just like nice, right? All right, so I'm gonna have to zoom in a little bit on that for you guys. Either that or I'll make myself small. You know what I mean? That's probably the best thing to do. Make myself small. All right, I'm gonna whoop. It's not working out here. Laura, I'm keeping you on there for a second just so they can see. All right. Here's the deal. Matt Gaetz had a hell of a night in Florida last night. I mean, his candidates romped. Okay, and let's just get the Laura Loomer thing out of the way. It has to be noted she's been banned from every social media platform. If you talk about her, you'll likely be banned, or if you push things for her, you'll likely be banned. But nevertheless, she was raising money, significantly raising money. And we're talking about Florida 21, folks, which is a much more difficult district for Republicans, but you got to give it to her because she won, and she won pretty solidly, and she did it by basically being depersoned. So it's a testament to how one of the downsides for Republicans in the era of Donald Trump is that everybody thinks they're Donald Trump, and they run for office and think they can win on Twitter. Laura Loomer not only just proved that, first of all, you're not Donald Trump and you can't win on Twitter, but Laura Loomer just proved that you can outwork your opponents, even though, you're off social media. So it's that I find that to be pretty important. But what I really want to focus on, because now this race is competitive, is Florida 13. All right. It was a competitive district. And then Charlie Crist, the former Republican governor, turned Democrat because he thought Florida was going to turn blue. All right. He turned to the Democratic Party, ran against Marco Rubio as still, that was his last run as a Republican. He was at first the favorite to win that primary for the Republican Party in 2010. He lost it. And then that's when he jumped ship. He's tried to make a series of runs that failed. Florida being one, the governor being again, he tried to run again for his old job against Rick Scott. Rick Scott beat him. They gave him Barack Obama's turnout operation. Rick Scott still beat him. Now he is the representative of Florida 13. All right. A district that is looking like it's been moving toward Democrats, but I would argue that it's really, and it has moved toward, I mean, that's not in dispute. I'm just simply saying it's not out of the realm with the right candidate. It's not out of the realm of flippable for Republicans by any measure. And if they have a good election in November, this is one of the districts that absolutely could go with the right candidate. Last night, Anna Paulina Luna, all right, who is a veteran. She is what you would need for a Florida 13. She won the primary, another Gates endorsement. And she beat a lobbyist that was basically the GOP's fave. All right. And she beat that lobbyist anyway. So here we are now. This is why I'm telling you this is a competitive district. Bear with me. Don't get a headache looking at me scroll quickly. I just want to show you guys real quick. Voter analysis report, Florida. Here's my query. Florida congressional district was obviously one of them. 13, Charlie Crist. We're excluding the dead and recent movers, which in this election, maybe I'm wrong to do. Okay. But there are 473,527 records for voters in this district. 195,000 plus landlines, 280,000 mobile phones, 302,000 emails. A nice district to poll, by the way. This is a district that could absolutely be polled. All right. Look at the party codes, folks. Florida's got a lot of third parties or non-major party designations. 33% Republican. Something just happened here. Your mic was popped on. Amen. Well, I'm going to mute you because it was annoying. But 33% Republican, 37.5% Democrat, almost 38. If you round up, it's 38, right? So a D plus 4.5 district. All right. Not good enough when there are 30% of the electorate is independent. Republicans do win the independent vote in Florida more often than not. And it doesn't swing that much statewide. We're talking about single point swings. That's why so many of these pollsters are just egregiously wrong in Florida. They're lost in the sauce. This is obviously Republicans are going to turn out in November. In Florida 13, they're going to turn out. If she wins, or if Trump, and it's a Republican election, and an independent swing toward Republicans, they can absolutely make up that that difference. And one of the reasons why as well is because this is absolutely a district where more Democrats will cross over to vote for Republicans than Republicans will cross over and vote for Democrats. Okay. So it could be close, but this is absolutely doable for Ms. Luna. All right. It is 53.5% female, 46.5% male. Don't let that throw you off. But in Florida, take a look at the exit polls in 2016. Florida is slightly more female in general than the census, but it doesn't matter because white women in Florida are more conservative than they are in the rest of the state. You can go by income, and we can, make hay of that. But when you and this breaks it up by every 5,000, so we do that because sometimes we really want to drill down. All right, but the 150,000 mark, which is a swing vote, especially in this district. A nice chunk of the electorate. All right. Just a couple of things I want to point out here. And then you can see that there's a ton that it's going to happen. A ton are unknown. But in the end, there's not that uber rich class that now votes Democrat. Republicans can make this happen if they put the time and effort into it. The marriage indicator, which is a strong indicator on how people will vote, You know, if you're a Republican campaign, you want to see your district a little bit more married than 30% solid. There's a ton unknown. So maybe it really is 35-40. But in the end, that is not a great indicator. So they're going to have to make, it tells you who you have to talk to, where you have work to do. All right. That's why we build these profiles. But if you look at inferred ethnicity, which again, you guys know, very accurate, much whiter than the state as a whole. All right. So there you have it. All right. And then there's whatever, education, also very important. All right. There's a nice college vote there, but that does not mean graduate. Graduate is the problem for Republicans these days. It's a very small part of the electorate in that district. So this is a very quick, brief blow over here because I want to get to economic data. But does anybody have questions on 13 before I go real quick? Any one or some question that they have?
I don't see any 13 questions.
Yeah, she persisted, Deborah. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the comments. She did. She persisted, you know. So in the end, it was, and we're talking about Loomer, in the end, that is where you got to really give her credit where credit's due, because it's not easy to be removed as a person like that, you know, especially for half of it, fake news, but being removed as a person. And it's just, it's a bit crazy, you know. There's some stuff I'm not sure I want to show them. Looks like we just, I'm clicking, guys. Voter data is now 213 million. And you know what? I will show them this. Hold on, guys. Because just to give you an idea, the difference between a voter and consumer file. All right. I don't know if I should be showing them this, but this is an update that happens that tells me what is new. Okay. So something just updated. It's North Carolina. There are new districts, as you guys know, presidential primary. Now we have early returns. Nightly updates are available for Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why does this matter? Because now that presidential primary data is going to be added to that inferred probability model. So when we know somebody is inferred Democrat, inferred Republican, it means they voted in this many primaries over this many years. So we know they're a Republican. They may not be registered as a Republican, but we know they are a likely Republican voter, or vice versa. So we have a ton now from new battleground states: Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio. All right. And select counties, because Ohio is very weird. All right. But in the end, you can see the voter file database is 213 million plus voters. This is what I'm trying to explain to you with some of the crazy projections out there. In 2016, voter turnout was up. It was 135, 137 million people, voters. That's it. Yes, the voter file is 213 million plus voters, but they're not all real records. They're not clean records. That doesn't include the dead, change of flags, a change of address flags, etc. Being very generous to Democrats, I can get it to around 180 plus million, even in the mid to upper 180s. But that would mean an increase of 50 million more votes in a traditional presidential election. Does that sound like that's going to happen, folks? And here is the consumer file. The update now, excuse me, it ticked up a little bit, Laura. You know, it's like this consumer file changes, and it's now 245 million plus consumers. So we have profiles on 245 million and change. If you're going to poll that file, instead of polling the voter file, you're going to get people who not only are not going to vote, but may not even be registered to vote. Let me say that again, because this is what some of these pollsters are trying to get you to believe. There are panels out there. YouGov is one of them. They are not voter file based panels. They are consumer panels. And we're talking about a disparity of at least 32 million people. And then we have to further drill down into that to make sure they're even really a registered voter, and this is a real a qualified record. And then from there, that's the big net. And then from there, we have to drill down and tighten the screen on the likely voter model. Are they going to vote? You can't poll a consumer panel and give the results for an election. You simply can't do it. All right. So that's the way That's the difference that it makes. All right. I'm just trying to explain this stuff to you guys because you will never, ever get it from big media. They're not going to tell you that. They're just not. All right. Let's take a look now at this was yesterday, but I do want to go over it. Okay. Obviously, day-to-day changes, things are going to happen. Actually, both things are technically from yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to go over them. All right. New e-commerce numbers are in, which help drive the next story. But new e-commerce numbers are in. Boom. They soared 31.8% in the second quarter of 2020. They are now 44.4% higher year over year. All right. Big numbers. The U.S. Census Bureau reported the estimate for U.S. e-commerce retail sales for the second quarter of 2020 rose 31.8%. Look at the small margin of error there, folks. We know we're not going to have a big revision from Q1 2020. That is adjusted for seasonal variation, but not for price changes. Q1, as you know, was wrecked by the late quarter stay-at-home orders from COVID. It was not going to be the quarter of slowdown or significant slowdown that everybody said or hoped in media it was going to be. It was -5 because of the slowdown orders. The BEA says it explicitly in their report. We may have seen slower growth from the third and fourth quarter of the prior year. But everybody knows not everybody, everyone in financial reporting knows the first quarter under Obama was often a throwaway. And that's typical. And then the second, third, and fourth quarters make up the ground. All right. Here's the series indicator. Here's the 1 year. All right. And you can clearly see that they are skyrocketing. Obviously, why? Because people can't go out, or could not go out, or now are too afraid to go out. But at least they're still spending their money. Total retail sales for this second quarter 2020 were estimated at $1.311 billion, down 3.9% from Q1 2020. The estimate for the second quarter rose 44.5% from the second quarter of 2019 year over year. Total retail sales are still down 3.6% during the same period. They accounted for 16.1% of total retail sales in the second quarter. On a non-adjusted basis, they came in at $200.7 billion, which is a gain of 37% from Q1. All right. So, that's it. I mean, we really need to go over the rest of this, but the reason why I am going over it is because it certainly contributed to what we saw yesterday, which was that the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both closed at new highs. Here we go. And I'm trying to leave some time here. All right. So they recovered, especially the S&P just did this yesterday. NASDAQ has been on a tear, and I'll tell you how many tears in a second. But the NASDAQ was ahead of the game. And the S&P 500, widely seen as the benchmark, what's the word I'm looking for? The U.S. equities bellwether kind of thing, right? That had lagged the NASDAQ. Now, though, it's got back all of its losses from coronavirus. Go check your 401k if you got one. We did the other day. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ composite closed at new record highs on Tuesday, recovering all of the losses in the wake of COVID-19. The S&P closed up 7 points, and 7 and change, almost 8 points, or 0.23% at 3,389.78. A new record high after a bear market bottomed out on March 23rd. The proxy for U.S. equity markets is now 55% up and well into bull market territory. Folks, this is the fastest recovery from a bear market in the history of the index. We just don't see bear to bull swings like this. And for that matter, we didn't see bull to bear swings, that we saw during COVID. So again, this is the graph. You guys can go check it. We compared it with the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the Russell 2000, which you all know I love. The NASDAQ composite closed up also 81 points and change. Now it's at 11,210.84. That's the 34th record close of the year for the NASDAQ. The Dow Jones Industrial Average that closed down 66 and change to 27,778. Looks like it's meeting a little bit of resistance levels at 28. That is the next goal. Let's hope it pushes through it. The Russell 2000 also closed down at 1569.77, about 17 points, almost 16 points. All right, less than 1 percentage point. But the Russell is more volatile. You guys know the deal, right? Small caps, mid caps. The smaller the cap, the more volatile. The Russell 2000 is a more volatile index and has been on a bit, actually, as you can see, the blue line here has been on a bit of a tear itself. All right. And as far as percentage changes going back to like late May, early June, the Russell was really the one that was on the tear. All right. So I just wanted to share that too. All right. Let's get some questions in because, like I said, I do have to cut this short, but believe me, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't important. And don't forget to watch What Are the Odds with Barnes and Barris at 2. So it's like I have to put something together. All right. And I have to sign off on it before it goes out. And there is a deadline for it. All right. So, and I got to like find the time to do that in between What Are the Odds. So it's just the way it is. I mean, we'll be back. I'll make a more robust show tomorrow. All right. I promise. Actually, stamp it, Laura. We'll do a little bit extra time at the end of the show tomorrow, okay? And we'll add to it. All right. So why don't we go ahead, get some questions from Laura, and I'll shut up.
Woo woo, my turn. All right. Actually, it's your guys' turn, but let's see. Starting with MVLACH77. What is the best approach the Republican National Convention should take? What should they emphasize to counter the Democratic Convention?
Good. Very good question. I just wanted to let people know we're taking questions. So, all right. First things first. They should not be doing what these pre-canned Zoom and Skype messages that are like one thing after the other. Absolutely, Donald Trump should not deliver his speech the way Joe Biden's going to deliver it. That's number one. So one is about optics. The optics of this thing are really bad. It's uncomfortable to watch. Nobody's watching it unless you're like the woke mob, right? Or unless you're like the woke, liberal elite in San Francisco. The ratings are there. It's not my freaking opinion. The ratings are there. I mean, the media market you could look at. Nobody's looking at this thing, man. Nobody wants to see it. It's horrible. I mean, so they need to not, because they won't even probably do it as well if they tried to duplicate what the DNC is doing, because the DNC always gets help from Tinseltown, right? So they won't even be able to do it like the DNC is doing it. They should do this more as a live and human interaction, event. That's number one. But you could be responsible and still do that. Trump should absolutely deliver his speech, not canned, but his 2016 acceptance speech at the RNC in 2016 was one of the best political speeches I've ever seen in my life. I mean, right? It was that good. When he said, "I am your voice," I said, "This race is over." All right. And right, you were there. This race is over. I don't care what, they think is going to happen. That was a brilliant speech. He needs to invoke that again. All right. He needs to invoke it again. And number two, aside from the optics, there's no policy in the DNC convention. There's nothing. They're not saying we will make your life better because we have made your life better and we'll do it again, because they're not doing that. They're fighting against something which most Americans don't believe. They're trying to claim, as far as economics, everything you felt under Donald Trump was really us anyway. Most Americans don't believe that. Americans are divided on that question because a lot of Democrats don't want to give Donald Trump credit for anything. But Republicans and independents know that Donald Trump's economy is Donald Trump's economy, and that they are doing better because of Trump's policies. If you pull the policies and you say, whether or not you like Donald Trump or not, do you want the country to move forward with his policies or go back to the liberal policies of Barack Obama? It's not even close, folks. It's not even close. All right. And that is because independents side with Republicans on economics. So they need to offer a rational policy choice and say, You did better before COVID, and we're on our way again to building that strong labor market again. You did better because of these policies, A, B, and C. If you stick with us, we're going to make your life better by doing A, B, and C. There's nothing at the Democratic convention. You want a shock moment, okay? We're on election night. Everybody's wondering what the hell happened. Joe Biden did do better with the white vote. How was this happening? Blah, blah, blah. You want a shock moment. Keep those working class minorities that have moved to Trump or giving him another look right now, because that is what has kept him competitive and in this race. When the polls turned on him, a white share of the vote was down, and it was a matter of Donald Trump holding numbers that we haven't seen with other minority communities. You want to shock? Tell those minorities what policies you're going to implement to make their lives better. What specifically are you going to do? It doesn't need to be, some canned Mitt Romney like release of an economic plan or something. That's not what I'm talking about. Donald Trump did it in 2016. He explained how he was going to specifically make people's lives better. These policies are wrong. This will hurt you. We're going, and did and has hurt you. We're going under me in this direction, and your life's going to get better. And first, he needs to say, I told you that it would. It did. Stick with me. We're on our way back. Keep moving forward. And so part of it's optics to answer that question. And then the other part is messaging. The Democrat messaging sucks. I can't believe it, because they're usually very good at it. Their discipline is good, but the message blows. It blows. There is no message. It's hate Donald Trump, be very afraid, and you're not a good person if you don't vote for us. That's the message. It's the biggest campaign in social desirability bias I've ever seen in all the years in this business. All right. Sorry.
So following up with that, at Mr. Chris Fitz on Periscope wants to know, should Trump do his speech at the White House or Gettysburg?
Wow, that's another great question. Listen, sometimes this is why they wanted a quasi kind of election. It's hard to campaign against the prez, man. It is. Why? Because you run around your little tour bus, and then he blows in on Air Force One like he did yesterday, right? And he's just, he did. And the Minnesota stop was brilliant. So he goes to, in case you guys missed it, he goes to Minnesota and he meets with minority business owners whose businesses have been destroyed by these riots and by defunding the police, efforts to defund the police, and just a general sense of no law and disorder. All right. And, you got the backdrop of Air Force One behind you. Joe Biden is trying not to have to do that this year, and the media is trying to help him. They are. Because, Kerry had a problem with Bush with this. He would make some ground in the polls. He would even lead. And Kerry would go somewhere and try, state that he wanted to pluck off from George W. Bush. And then George W. Bush would roll into town with Air Force One and the jacket and the cap. And it's just something about it. And it's like, whoa, it's the president, and that plane is awesome, right? So it's a very hard thing to combat when you're doing this, and, when you're running against a sitting president. Mitt Romney, Obama was very good at doing that too. He did it in Ohio very well. This is what Democrats are trying not to do. I would pick somewhere, and he mentioned Gettysburg specifically. I would pick somewhere outdoors for the whole COVID thing. All right. And historic. And I would, maybe Gettysburg isn't even the best place to do it. Maybe it is, but I can think off the top of my head of other places where maybe is the better time for the moment. We are a country very rich in history. You look at John Kasich and his stupid picture, we're at a crossroads, right? We got that thing still, right? Yeah, we do. We have this, there are places, there are times and places in American history where we have really been at a crossroads, right? And John Kasich tried to invoke that, but it was a failure. It was an epic failure. There are events. Gettysburg is a great one. It is, but there are even other ones. I would do the speech outdoors. I wouldn't do it at the White House, even though it packs that commander-in-chief thing, because he's now the incumbent president and he's still trying to run against the establishment. I wouldn't tap, like the Brady, I have a press room or some briefing. I just wouldn't. I would invoke something. I would go another direction. I would do something that more Americans can relate to and more Americans can agree. You know what? That was a pivotal time in American history. I see what he's talking about. I'm sticking with Donald Trump, kind of thing. Yeah, that's what he's going to really, folks. I can't stress enough how Americans the really truly persuadable ones do not like to course correct. They don't like to change in the middle of a president's incumbent reelection. They'll only do it if they feel like they have to. He needs to push the idea. Obama did it fantastic in 2012. I mean, I'm not trying to praise Obama here today, but there's just some things that were genius. Forward, 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 forward. Do not let them win. You have been winning. Do not let them win. All right? Keep moving forward. Stick with me. I'll get us through it. We'll get out of the other side of this thing. That's what he's got to do. That's got to be his message. All right, let me kill my mic. Yeah, Laura.
All right. KGB wants to know, could you please explain social desirability? You say it often, but go in depth about it.
You really work for the KGB, man? I hope not, because or the new version of it, because yesterday with the Russia thing again, it's just ridiculous. It gets to the point. It's just totally ridiculous. So, social desirability bias is when, and it's a general feeling, or that people are uncomfortable with telling you the truth because of that bias has inflicted them. They feel as if social circles and pressure have given them the right answer. And if they disagree with it, then they are, could be ostracized or mocked, belittled, made fun of, labeled with some kind of a backward stigma, whatever it may be. I mean, there are other reasons to push social bias, social desirability bias, but that's what's happening now. So it's the desire of the respondent or the voter to give the answer or behave, even because we're talking about cognitive biases, behavior. Okay, it's not just voting or giving a polling response. We're talking about behavior. It's the desire of that person or group of people to behave a certain way because they have been made to feel through massive pressure, social pressure, that is the, quote, morally or virtuous way to behave, morally right, the virtuous way, the virtuous belief. And they may go along with it in public, and in private, they don't. So, or they may opt not to participate at all to avoid that scrutiny. And it's, you know what it is, folks? You know what it is? It's bullying. Mm-hmm. All right? At its core, the Democrat strategy this year is bullying. It's this is what I find ironic, and cheating, and what I find ironic this time, because they hate Donald Trump because he's a bully, right? They've how many times did you hear them say this? But so pushing a campaign of social desirability bias is just sophisticated bullying. So you're bullying people into believing, you're trying to bully them into believing, behaving, acting in a certain way that you find acceptable, that you find moral, that you find virtuous. And if you don't, you'll be physically assaulted. You'll be emotionally assaulted, emotionally attacked. You could lose your job. You know what? I want to read something. It's shaming. Thank you, Laura. I'm like, she knows when I'm struggling for a word. You know what? And on that, I'm going to share it in the thing. All right. Her name is Carrie Smith. She is and I'm going to send it in the comments now. If you guys didn't read it, if you didn't read it, read this, read it. So I wrote, if you didn't read this, read it. And I'm sharing it now. Okay. Carrie is a liberal. All right. And she used to be a social justice warrior. And she wrote a column on August 12th entitled "A Liberal for Trump." I'm voting for Trump because the Democratic Party is no longer liberal. And she talks a great degree about it. She goes on in-depth personal experience can do that. And it says a little background. Well, first she says, hello, my name is Kerry and I'm a liberal who is voting for Donald Trump. All right. And now if I read this, social bias will be explained. Social desirability bias will be explained a little bit, but just a little background. I used to be a social justice warrior. And she goes on to say it and says that she was basically brainwashed into believing, that this is sexist, this is racist. And she came to the conclusion, she cried the night Donald Trump won in 2016 and said, I'm going to find out why he won so I can prevent it in 2020. And she ran into a couple of things. The lies the media have been told, and then the social desirability bias campaign that horrified her. And what I mean by that is it's not liberal. It's the opposite of liberal. It's not about the promotion of thought and different ideas or the tolerance of it. It is about the wholesale shaming, shunning, and bullying of people into believing, acting, or behaving the way you want them to. All right. So it's scary. It's very scary stuff. And when it comes to my job, it sucks, KGB, because it makes my job very hard. And I have to tailor all of these kinds of crazy questions to make sure that I'm really getting or eliciting the appropriate response. All right. All right. Let's get another one. It's 11:06, Laura. Okay. Let's go.
All right. Well, I have plenty. So
I know,
yeah.
And we'll add them to another show. But all right.
Two more? Okay. Flyover expat wants to know, can James win Michigan Senate seat?
Whoa. I don't know why people continuously call me during this show as if they don't know that I am on this show. I'm sorry for this. I should just kill it. All right. Oh, I know who it is. He can call whenever. All right. Listen, bottom line is John James does not have a great campaign around him. It did very well in areas that are Democratic areas in 2018, and then did not do very well in areas that were Trump voting areas that ended up giving Trump the state of Michigan. But he did do in like Wayne County, for instance. He did do as well as you would hope if you support Trump. He does in 2020 because there were more votes out of Wayne County that could have been cast, folks. Michigan is the one state where you could say the Democrat argument about turnout is a solid argument. It is. In Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, he just beat her like a drum. That's it. He flipped way too many counties. And while it was close, it was a massive swing, one you don't see very often in presidential elections. But in Michigan, he could have squeezed out more in Wayne. So in order to win Wayne County, James is going to have to repeat his level of support. In order to win Michigan, he's going to have to repeat his level of support that we saw in Wayne County. And then he's going to have some kind of kumbaya moment with Trump voters because he doesn't appeal to the working class Michigander like Donald Trump does. He just doesn't. That's what caused that margin to grow later on in the night, even though it looked like he was putting on a show. His campaign is not very great. They're surrounded by your very typical Republican elites and stuff, that have been losing elections in Michigan and everywhere else for many, many, many cycles, yet keep getting hired back because they have friends. So the Terrence Group, right? Polling firm. I'm not trying to slam anybody by name here. I'm simply saying you will find the same names attached to loser campaigns in the Republican field everywhere. All right. He pays hundreds of thousands of dollars to media placement companies to be put on Fox News. You are not going to win the state of Michigan on Fox News. All right. And Fox has got a good thing there because they have connections with those pollsters and friends and relationships. They'll come out, show a poll that says +9 to the Democrat. Then those media placement companies will run to the campaign and say, you're down 9 points. You need more exposure, right? And then they'll get their $250,000. Go look at his FEC filings, folks. He's being played. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I think he's a decent, honest man. I do. I'm just saying he's not running a campaign in Michigan. It's god awful. His communications are god awful. I've seen them bungle endorsements from people that are big deals in Michigan. Just unbelievable stupidity and amateur hour stuff. This time around, it's a little better. It seems a little better, but it's still not great. However, I will say this. The race is definitely tightening over there. We now can see the media polls are aligning. Like Change Research has a very tight race. It's basically mirrors his own campaign polling. But I'm just telling you that it's one of those groups that will tell a candidate what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Right? Pollster's job, and a lot of Republican pollsters have forgotten this. A pollster's job is to tell their candidate where they are struggling and failing. Yes, their job is not to say, oh, good for you, pat on the back, you're ahead. You're not. All right? And Trump's got a pollster like this too. I hate to tell everybody. All right? He does. And that's not your damn job. Your job is to say, you are way behind Trump's numbers and up. Way behind. You better go connect with the working class up there, or you're going to lose this election, because you could get 35%, 40% in Wayne and still lose. Your margin in Oakland sucks. Macomb County blows. Like that is your job. All right. But right now, I guess the answer is yes, he can. He's just doing a lot of things wrong. It really is. And Peters is a weak incumbent. And if you can't beat Gary Peters with a charismatic candidate, then there's something in that state, then there's something wrong. And he's just too cushy with the Republican establishment. He's just too cushy with those kinds of people. And their message is not for working class Trumplicans. They're not even Republicans, folks. They're not. Like 10, 15% Democrat, 45% independent. These are the voters he needs to reach. And he's just not. I mean, how did Mitt Romney do in Michigan, Laura? How did John McCain do in Michigan? I mean, these people don't connect with, there are not enough of the Americans. They still think it's not that America anymore. It's just not. They live in the past. 1980 called. They want their electorate back.
You're cute.
Like Barack Obama. All right, let's do one more, and then I'm going to get back to my little secret plan. All right.
All right. Evan Bliss wants to know, how can Trump be down by 10 while leading by 5 among independents in the YouGov poll? Does weighting correctly by party ID throw off other factors like demographics? The sample was 41% Dem, 26% Republican, and 33% Indy.
That is such a fantastic question. That is worth an entire segment. And maybe when we have some polling results of our own soon, I will show you. Okay. That absolutely. If you don't, okay, the answer to that is they probably have way too many Democrats in their sample, but not just Democrats. That's a trap that a lot of pundits fall into. The sample will get to be more Democrat if your weighting is wrong on other variables. So what he asked is absolutely yes. The answer is yes. If you wait for education, it will change the makeup of the electorate. If you wait for region, it will change the makeup of the electorate. There's so much that goes into this. What was his name? That was a great, Evan, that was a great question. And I really need to show them. Like, I'll go into market site and we'll use the weighting variable tool and I'll show them how it changes eventually. When we get results, I'm going to do that. All right. And then it also can throw it off, Evan, if you don't weight one variable at a time. So a lot of them will try to cheat and let the computer do the work for them. And they'll say, okay, I want to wait for a party like this. I want to wait for education like that. I want to wait for income like this. I want to wait for age and they'll smash it all into one variable. It has to be applied one variable at a time. All right. But Laura's getting mad at me for telling secrets. She does. But the honest to God, this is something everyone should know. I mean, really. And you can make it like on a tool like Market Site, like we use. You can make it and define it as one variable. They just have to be applied one at a time. And then we don't wait for party ID. If you apply the variables correctly, Laura, I know, I see you. If you apply them correctly, you don't have to wait for party, because no electorate is the same from one year to the other. If you wait for party because you think the electorate is going to look a certain way or behave a certain way, then you're telling the electorate what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to shut up as a pollster and listen to the electorate, and they will tell you who they are. And that is the way it's done. YouGov is honestly, they need to like scrap the whole operation and rebuild it. I'm not kidding. It's that bad. I mean, it's not even that it's that bad because a broken clock is right twice a day. But they are that unscientific to me. All right. And not only that, but go conduct market research. Your brand index used to be dope. I used to watch it and look at them all the time. I followed them all the time. You are not a political polling operation. You don't poll voters, the wrong population. They do incredible branding work. I love what they do with that. That is awesome. Like I said, I used to love their brand index, and then they got into other things and they forgot what they were actually good at doing, and now are trying to be experts in something that they're failing at year after year after year. It's horrible. It's sad, and it's sad to watch, and it kind of pisses me off because you're just hurting the industry. You're just hurting it. All right. And yeah, in the end, Adam, it could depress the vote they're trying to prop up. All right. And the other day, I know so many Republicans that said the CNN poll was simply, they were, what's the word? They were canning them because they're, number one, trying to show a convention bump because they don't think there's going to be one. So they're trying to tighten the race to show a bump. And then two, because they feel like Democrats are going to get complacent and not vote because they're going to think it's like so overwhelming. All right. What's up, Laura? I thought that was the last question. We got to boogie on out of here.
You said you were going to do a whole show on Evans. So come on.
All right. Laura, last question.
I promise. Lamp Crow wants to know, is this the crescendo of the Dems' identity politics obsession? If they lose, could they puke it out and moderate? Also, is Wikipedia a reliable source? They go out of their way to call mail-in voter fraud debunked.
Wikipedia is not a reliable source. It's not even really a source. I mean, you could pull some information from it, but the editors are grossly unethical, rabidly ideological, and distortioners of the truth. You can't use Wikipedia as a source when you're trying to get your advanced degree in college because it's not a real source of information. It's not a real encyclopedia. The one thing you can use Wikipedia for until they get wise to this and they change it and start doing what other aggregators do is you can double check an aggregator like RCP, HuffPolster, and even the Slimer, all right, to see which polls came out at what times and when they really were reported or narrated, because you'll be surprised how many polls get canned. And what I mean by that is the media outlet will not release them publicly. They'll later get put into like an average after the election or something. It happens, and it happens more often than you think. All right. Gillum. All right. Perfect example. CNN. All you saw was that plus 12 poll. You never saw that poll that showed Gillum up by 1 at the end because they canned the poll. They didn't want coverage of it. You can use Wikipedia to double check whether the aggregators are really being honest with you. Even RCP, which I like. RCP does not, they change the order at different times, and then they add polls posthumously. All right. Like after the election is over, they will add polls to the aggregate, and then all of a sudden, magically, the polling average, the RCP average, looked a lot closer than it did the damn day before the election. And we have screenshots of it. They do it. All right. So, but now somebody from Wikipedia will get wind of me saying this, and they'll start doing what they do because you can't have any source of information that conflicts with the other ones. All right. So Barnes and Barris today at 2, Witchfinder. Barnes and Barris today at 2, which leads me to the outro here. I really do have to make sure I have enough time to trust me, folks. You will say in the end, it was worth it, Richard. That's all right. It was worth it. Right? Am I wrong, Laura? Am I wrong? All right. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit, and follow Laura if you want at Laura Barris, Baris. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're doing awesome there, guys. You guys are great. And don't forget to like the page on Facebook. All right. And of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD, which you could do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Like I've always said, get some data for your dollar. You can always do your contributions, but I'd really rather you get something for your money. All right. And I can't promise you we'll cover everything, but I can promise you we will cover what we do cover better than everybody else. All right. Like you just saw the records are news at PBD. All right. It's data journalism, records are news and all of those. You just won't get that stuff on how many times did the S&P break the record this year? Like that's, maybe they'll get funny and they'll do it as a headline once in a while, but they'll never, you won't get the consensus forecast range for indicators. Was it a low to a high? What was the consensus? You'll get the Wall Street Journal consensus because they want you to get theirs. You get Reuters or something from Fox News. And that's it, because they don't believe in giving people the totality of the picture. They just don't. It's sad, but that's the world we're living in. All right. But yeah, check out Barnes and Barris today at 2. All right. We'll talk more about the Rust Belt Battleground poll. And then, of course, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll go over day 3 of the Democratic Convention. More, actually, I think we'll focus more on politics tomorrow, though. Actually, I mean, we do have the jobless claims and the Fed survey coming out before the show, so we could talk about that. But yeah, we'll add some more time for questions, and then really, I'll do a lot on Freewheeling Friday. All right. And we'll save it for that because I know you guys are going to have a ton of post-convention questions. And we'll have some video clips on Friday. We'll just laugh at everybody. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll answer your questions. Then we'll take seconds to play very funny, stupid videos of people, and we'll laugh.
Great. God, I love it. How are you? Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
All right, everyone. I'm Bruce Jenner's husband. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. We'll see you back tomorrow, okay? 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the best.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.